Welcome to the source of commercial real estate, where we talk to the experts in non-residential commercial real estate so you can grow your business, find a competitive advantage, and live the life that you want. I am your host, Jonathan Hayek, and today I am talking with Andy Gurczak with All City Adjusting. And today we are talking about a topic that I didn't even know that I needed to talk about. I'm talking with someone with a job that I didn't know existed, but I think it's going to be a really helpful and fascinating discussion today. Andy is the founder of All City Adjusting. He's a licensed public adjuster, and Andy immigrated to America from Poland with his family at the age of 9. After working in the construction industry, he discovered his true calling: public adjusting. Over the last decade, Andy has not only protected thousands of people from being defrauded, but also helped them receive more money than what their insurance company initially offered. In one instance, a client had his business burned to the ground and was originally quoted $3,000 from his insurance company, but with Andy's help, he received over $600,000. And he was able to properly rebuild and restart his business. Andy, I am really looking forward to this conversation. Thank you for joining me. How are you doing today?
Thanks for the intro, Jonathan. Thank you for having me on. I'm doing great. Sun's shining in the Midwest, so we're good. We get sunshine this early in Midwest. We're good.
I am looking forward to this conversation because I think we're going to talk about something that is going to be really interesting to a lot of people. And I think a lot of people are like me. They're maybe misinformed about what their rights are as a property owner and as a policyholder of an insurance policy. And so I think you're going to uncover a lot of great nuggets for us today. Why don't we start out by you telling us a little bit more about your background and what your work looks like today?
Yeah, so I started in construction, in the construction industry. While I was doing that, I met a public adjuster that was actually in the industry for 40 years. Was the first public adjuster, actually, first African American public adjuster in Illinois. He taught me everything I know, pretty much. So in 3 years, I got all that education with him, and then went on to open All City Adjusting. It's been over 10 years now that we actually have been incorporated. We've been in this business technically longer, while I was working still under his license. And we've grown the company now to over 30 states. I think we're 35 states now that we handle losses in. We specialize in large loss, commercial, business, fires, hurricane, water losses. That's our specialty. And majority of our clients are actually, your listeners are going to be commercial investors, business owners, and that's kind of the realm that we're in.
So you mentioned Illinois. Are you still based in Illinois?
I actually moved personally to Indiana, and then the business moved to Indiana as well. So now technically our corporate office is in Indiana. Then we have other offices in different states.
Okay. Great. I grew up in the Midwest. So you mentioned the Midwest earlier, and I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in Illinois. So I am familiar with the gray skies of the Midwest, the 6 months of gray skies in the Midwest that you get in the winter. So
are you familiar with the weather this year though? Because we've had like one snow day or 2 snow days.
Really?
It's been like 60s for the last 2. It's actually been probably the nicest winter I can remember.
That's amazing.
Now, fingers crossed, because it's early. It's only February. So, that snow comes in. They can shock you in April.
I'm now based in Colorado. And for the most part, we've also had a fairly mild winter. But we've had a ton of snow. I live in the mountains, but it has been fairly mild, which has been nice. So Andy, let's get back into adjusting. Before I met you, I didn't know there was such thing as a public adjuster. Will you describe what your work is? Yeah. What is a public adjuster?
Yeah, and just for those people that don't know, in many states like California, maybe Florida, and some other East West Coast states where they get a lot of hurricanes, they're very familiar with public adjusters, and they use them all the time. In the Midwest and some other states that don't get hurricanes or don't get exposed to damage or hurricanes or weather events, they really don't know. So a public adjuster, or another term you can say, is a private adjuster. It's an adjuster that advocates for the insured against the insurance company, right? And when you think why do I need a public adjuster? Why would there be an adjuster on my side? Well, because the insurance company's adjuster and everyone else, their vendors and everyone works for the insurance company. So they technically, how can they advocate for them and then advocate for you? That's where we step in and we take that claim from the start. We handle it all the way through the end, and then we handle all the coverages that's in the policy that's pertaining to the loss.
You just touched on this a little bit, but I'd like to get a little more information on kind of your role in the insurance claim process. Somebody like myself, or somebody that kind of is a DIYer, likes to handle their own claims, might say, a public adjuster or private adjuster, why would I need someone else to handle my claims for me? So let's frame the conversation in terms of what problem are you solving for your clients?
Correct. So there's going to be multiple problems, right? Right now, not getting your claim delayed, not getting your claim denied, taking the stress off the client, and the main thing is maximizing the claim per policy limits, right? So when you started off that intro, that business that burnt down, that's a true story. I mean, that's a small number. We just finished a church where their general offer was 800, almost 800. It wasn't a full 800. We just settled that at 3.2. So you think about that client just received an extra 2.2. So those stories happen because we get those losses all the time. So that happens all the time. So maximizing your claim. And as a DIY person, or DIY like for investors, why we work with investors, why we like to work with investors and business owners, is because usually they have their own team, right? They have their own contractors. They have their own team for pretty much everything. Well, that's the same thing for us, right? We get them all the money recovered, and then now they can use their own people to do their own work, right? They're not stuck with working with the insurance contractors, the insurance, like all their team, right? They have their own team. That means they can kind of work their claim, take the money, and they're in control of the claim.
Well, you talk about, let's continue this conversation about kind of the juxtaposition of the insured versus the insurance company. I've always had a hard time with insurance companies because in my mind, my interests are not aligned with the insurance company. The insurance company makes money by not paying out claims. And of course, when I have something go wrong with one of my properties, I want them to pay out for the claim. And so your role in the process makes a lot of sense because my interests are not aligned with the insurance company. I'm sure an insurance agent would push back against that. But will you talk about maybe some of the strategies that insurance companies use against the insured? Maybe these strategies that people don't even realize that the insurance companies are deploying against them to, have their claims reduced.
Yeah. To touch back really quick, what you said about the insurance agents, we actually a lot of work we get referred to is from insurance agents, a lot of independent, maybe not like the main, the big three, the big insurance companies, but the independents call us a lot and because they know what's happening with the insurance industry. But to answer your question, they're looking, when you make that initial call and you start describing the claim and using words like mold, water leak, certain words that are right away get a red flag that get your claim delayed and then ultimately denied. That's the tricks, and that happens all the time. We literally there's a carrier that just put in their policy that says, usually it was in the policy that you have to if the home is vacant, you have to maintain heat in the home, right? But now they threw something in the policy that says you have to maintain at 55 degrees or higher, right? Really hard to verify that. But this insured, before he actually hired us, spoke with the adjuster and told him, I'm not here for a couple months of the year, and I usually keep the house at around 45 degrees. Well, right now the claim's being, investigated. Most likely it's going to be denied. But a simple and it's not to lie to the insurance company. He's maintaining heat. He is not maintaining it always the same throughout the year. But because he was so direct and just said, that's going to get your claim investigated and ultimately claim denied. So they're taking everything and they're looking at ways they can ultimately deny the claim. And not to say anything against insurance companies. They're in business. They have a purpose. We're not here to bash the insurance companies. We're just here to make sure to advocate for the little guy, make sure he gets everything he's owed. That's it.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's a contract. Your insurance policy is a contract, and both parties need to live up to both sides
Yep.
of their responsibilities in the contract. Will you talk about somebody that is looking to file a claim themselves and go through this themselves? I heard you on another podcast say that one of the mistakes that the insured party makes, is they talk too much. Like the example you just gave, I'm usually out of town and I keep it at 45
Yeah.
degrees, and the insurance company's listening and they say, oh, that's a ding against you because policy says it's supposed to be at 55 degrees. So
Correct.
will you talk about maybe some other things that the insured should keep in mind when they're initiating talks with the insurance company to make a claim?
Yeah, there's so many. Again, I wouldn't recommend, or we wouldn't recommend anyone to do this with by themselves on their own. But there's people that want to, and that's fine. Make sure you get a copy of your policy. Well, most people don't understand. Again, in commercial insurance, most of the clients get a policy, and they can actually see their policy. For residential, usually you get a deck page. You bind insurance, and then you never actually get a policy. So if you have one, great. If you don't, the first thing you should do is get a policy from your agent. Don't be surprised you might not get one for 10 days, 20 days. Somehow it's always lost. It's hard for them, or it's too big of a file. So once you get it, though, you have to go through that policy, and you have to see what exclusions you have, what endorsements you have. And then there's also the most important section, which is duties after a loss. And that's the insured's duties after a loss. You have to read those because you have to meet those to actually be identified, to actually have the policy be enforced. So knowing what your duties are after loss, and one of them is mitigate the property, which is a kind of a double-edged sword, because sometimes if you don't mitigate, meaning let's say you had water damage, and you don't get your team in there to mitigate quick enough, they'll say, well, you didn't mitigate, so your loss is denied. But then if you do mitigate, they say, well, you mitigated and we didn't have time to inspect the loss, and now your claim's denied. So it's like, well, when do I do it? Well, when we, like, for example, for us with years of experience, you kind of know when's the right time on how everything's supposed to play out. But if you're the insured, you're just kind of like doing everything really quick and not even thinking about it, because again, that's kind of your instinct, right? You've never been through this. You're just thinking, okay, I'm going to do this. The insurance, whatever I do, they're going to be here. They're going to pay for all this. So that's not how it works, but that's kind of how the mindset is.
Do you find that people have mistakes with their policies? Like they have certain expectations about what the insurance company is going to cover, but then when you look over their policy, it turns out that the insured are not actually covered for what they believe they're covered for.
All the time. That's Jonathan. That's like one of the most common things is, either way, either underinsured for the building, or for some of the coverages, lacking endorsements, or having exclusions that they weren't aware of, that don't. We just had a large commercial property where the insured wanted to file. They had a big windstorm, and they wanted to file a claim on their roof. Their policy technically not technically read that if a roof is older than 10 years, there's no coverage, or it's like actual cash value or something. I don't remember, but basically after we looked at it, it was made no sense for them to actually file a claim. And you're talking about $1 million loss, $1 million+ loss. So
Can you talk about any other areas that maybe people should look at their insurance policy? Maybe some areas that people believe that they're probably insured for, but it's maybe often an exclusion or a special endorsement that they need. Any quick takeaways that people can get right now?
yeah, if you have an agent, I know a lot of people are buying policies online now, which is kind of scary, right? They're being their own agent too. For commercial, you should be using an agent. Your agent should be aware of the building, the type of building, what business is in there, what's going on, the age of the building and everything, all the conditions. But that's sitting down with your agent and going through the full policy, not the declaration page, because there's a declaration page that, a couple pages long, that just shows you the coverages, some of the endorsements, exclusions, but actually then actually matching the endorsements to the policy, and then matching the exclusions to the policy, and actually reading what's excluded and what's actually going to be covered. Right? So that's kind of one of the most important things. So that should be an agent's responsibility. But unfortunately, they're selling a policy and they're moving on to the next. But you should be requesting that from an agent every time.
And are there certain areas like endorsements, like if it's a certain like type of flood or certain kind of wind, or like I know insurance policies can get all like crazy in all different ways. Like if it's water because of a storm surge, that's different versus if there's a
Yep.
flood from a river or something like that. Are there, endorsements or tricky exclusions that that people should watch out for, that you've seen other people get burned by?
Yeah, I mean, you could go down a list of exclusions on a policy. Right now, for example, right now, very common on roofs is metal exclusion. So all the metals, if it's a metal roof or it's a flat roof and it says metals, or a shingle roof and it has metals, there's a cosmetic exclusion, meaning that if it's cosmetic damage, meaning that it's still withstanding and it's still making sure that it's shedding water out, then you're okay. So, you know, that's tricky because if, 80% or 50% of your roof is metal, well, then you're kind of, you're out of there. So that's one comment that we see all the time. What's some other ones? Knowing, sewer or water backup, those happen very commonly. A lot of people don't even have that endorsement. And then actually where does that start, right? Because does that start that backup or that sewer, there's a limit usually for it. Well, is there, hey, only if it starts in the building? Because what if it starts on the outside of the building? Is it still, covered? This endorsement doesn't still kick in. So that's a big one. There's a service line endorsement too, that we recommend people to have. That's actually if your pipes like crack or if there's cracking somewhere or settling, that service line endorsement, they're usually small, 10, 15,000, but they don't cost much. But we've saved people. I mean, we've reviewed policies for so many clients that added that endorsement that, hey, oh my gosh, we just had a plumber. The water's not draining right because it's clay tile and the clay tile settled. So now they have to redig and redo it. Great. That endorsement covers it. And you call adjusters and they'll be like, oh, that's, settling is not covered. No, it's not. But that endorsement is what it's there for. So those are just a couple I mentioned, but you could go down a list. I mean, we could be here for a while.
Yeah, that metal roof exclusion I find really interesting. I would think, I think about a hailstorm, and a hailstorm might cosmetically damage a metal roof, and to the eye, you might say, "Oh, this needs to be replaced because of all this damage from the hail." But yeah, you're saying with that particular exclusion that an insurance company might not actually cover it because it's only cosmetic damage versus an asphalt shingle roof gets hail damage. An insurance company would, more than likely cover the replacement of that hail damage for if it was an asphalt shingle roof. So really interesting stuff. Andy,
Yeah,
let's get into all city adjusting and your work. So let's say somebody has a claim, they're banging their head against the wall talking to the insurance company, or it's just something they don't want to take on. So, will you take us through your process? If somebody wants to engage with you, what are some of the strategies that you employ to work on behalf of your clients to get them the biggest payout possible?
yeah. If someone says there's strategies in adjusting, just like with the attorney law firm or any other, but like there's strategy, just really no strategy. It's having the right team, it's having the experience, it's having the tools. When you specialize in a certain, like a lot of people ask us, well, you guys don't do residential storm damage. Well, we help people here and there as many as we can, but our specialty is large loss. It's fires, it's commercial properties, it's water damage to commercial properties. We have a team that can handle it. We have the tools to quickly inspect and scope a property, meaning we can measure a property that's 10, 15,000 square feet in an hour, right? With the tools, we can put an estimate together with our large loss team within a day. So we can quickly, our supportive documents, we have files of supporting documents that when we send the file, everything's back in that file up. So when people are like, well, I could just get a contractor to write me an estimate. That's retail. We write for indemnity, right? For full indemnity. And when we write, we also provide a book of supportive documents. You can't just say you got to replace this wall. You have to explain why you're replacing it and how it's going to why it's going to bring the insured back to indemnity. So I would say the biggest thing with All City and what we've done is we've just built a great team of people with a lot of years of experience in construction, in policy interpretation, and that helps us. And we can deploy to any state, right? We have offices throughout the state. We can be in another state. Again, we do a lot in California, in New York, right? We're there the same day, next day for our clients. It's just kind of the service, and our clients are kind of number one.
Will you talk more about why it might not be a good idea for the insured to get a bid from contractors? I know insurance companies they'll want bids, and they'll say, okay, you've got water damage, you've got roof damage, get me 3 different bids, and then we can complete your claim. But I've heard you say before that that's actually not a good idea to get bids from contractors. Will you talk more about that?
No, not at all, Jonathan, because those are retail contracts. I was a contractor. When I came to your house, I'm not looking at the damage. You asked me, hey, we had water damage. Well, I'm just going to say, okay, well, let's paint all these rooms. You know what? Why don't we do this bathroom while we're at it? And you're just giving one lump sum bid, right? Then the insurance companies want it to be broken down. So what they'll do is you'll get 3 bids. They'll say, well, we want the lowest one, and then make sure that contractor breaks down that lowest bid, itemize it. They say itemize it. Well, if I'm a contractor, I'm giving you a bid, and that's it. Whether you hire me or not, or I'm not doing anything else. I'm not an estimator. I don't break down bids. So all that puts you is in a backward scenario. Those are retail bids. Those are bids you should have for yourself. We are trying to write for everything that needs to be done to indemnify it, to put you back. What you do after the loss and how you spend the money and what you put back, that's kind of up to you. It's the same scenario where if your car's insured and it's stolen, right, you're owed for that car. Whether you go replace it with the same car, a lesser car, better car, or you don't replace it at all, you were owed for that car because it was stolen. You had insurance for it. This is the same way, right? The insurance company is going to pull their tricks, whether it's get their own contractors, get their own vendors, say get bids, anything they can to lower that payment. It's just kind of how it works.
Does working with someone like you damage the relationship between the insured and their insurance company? Is it going to result in somebody's premiums increasing if, say, they were going to get a $5,000 claim, but then you come in and it turns into a $50,000 claim? Does the insured have to worry about getting dropped from their insurance company or having their premium skyrocket?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. First of all, starting with the relationship, there is no relationship. They have no relationship with you. Whatever you think you have a relationship, they're going to come out, they're good. No, you have no relationship. The adjuster works for the insurance company. That's who's paying his bonuses. That's who's paying his vacations. So there is no relationship. The agent might have a relationship with you, but those relationships are kind of dwindling down. It's hard to even get a good agent to get a good relationship. But the agent has nothing to do with the claim. So then you're left with these random people. And, we have claims with people being insured for 10, 15 years with the same carrier. USA, again, I don't want to name any insurance companies, but insurance companies that say, we're your best friend, we're your neighbor, we're whatever, and the claim happens. And then we get a call like, oh, they denied me. What happened? We thought, you had a relationship with your agent. Well, my agent can't do anything. Of course he can't, because the agents are been taken out of the claim process totally. When you hire a PA, that doesn't do anything. That shouldn't. Now, if an insured was to drop you because you hired a PA, that's illegal. There's no, but a lot of people, their first worry about hiring a PA, their first worry is my premium. And it's like, especially the older generation, is my premiums are going to go up. And that's such an old myth, because if you look at it, the first question we ask is, have your premiums not gone up the last 10, 15, 5 years? Are they just been the same when you insured the property 15 years ago? No, of course. They go up every year, and they're going to keep going up. That's just the norm. Just like everything else, inflation, the premiums are going to go up. So whether you have a claim or you don't, your premium is going to go up. They can't drop you based on just having that claim. Can they not renew you? Of course they can. So, but that we have no effect on that. A public adjuster has no effect on the outcome or anything that happens with underwriting or your insurance.
Is there a claim that's too small for the insured to work with a public adjuster on?
That depends on the public adjuster. Some public adjusters handle smaller claims. We handle large losses. Not that we don't handle smaller losses. We do. When we have our clients that have been with us or they use our services all the time, we help them with all their claims. that, then it doesn't really matter. But if someone calls, it's never used our services, and hey, we had a little water backup, it's a $5,000 limit or 10, it's hard. It's hard to help, right? Those clients, we usually like to advise everything and kind of what to do on their own. If not, recommend them to another PA firm that can maybe better assist them. But it's having that public adjuster relationship before you even have a claim, right? So like, let's just say we talk, Jonathan, and you're like, hey, we have a good relationship. If something happens, I'll call you. Great. Next time you have a claim, if you call us, we'll inspect the loss. We'll look over the policy if we haven't already. And then we'll tell you, hey, this is claim that we probably wouldn't file for you. And you shouldn't even file yourself because this is your deductible. You have a special deductible for this type of loss. You're only going to get a little bit more. Like there's no reason to file this, right? So, and if there is, maybe you have water backup, but your limit is 5,000. Well, we know it's going to get maxed out. So we're going to tell you, Jonathan, just file the claim. You're going to get maxed out. There's no need for us to be on this claim. If the adjuster says something weird or something, hey, we're right next to you. But no need. We're not going to charge you on that.
So let's go through the process of a client engaging with All City Adjusting. Let's say a tornado came through and part of their property was destroyed, and they're saying, Andy, I need you to step in. I don't trust my insurance company. This is going to be a big ticket item. What can a potential client of yours expect when they engage with you?
So when they engage with us, it first starts with our due diligence process. So when we speak with you, Jonathan, when we speak with a new potential client, we like to do our right. If it's a new claim or if it's an existing, we're going to want a policy. We're going to want as much as documents we can get to make sure that we're a good fit, that we can actually help you, bring some value to you. If that happens, we send the contract, and then our team kind of, once the contract signed, gets to work. Super easy, right? If it's just damage to the building, we send our team out. We measure the entire, electronically measure. We have cameras we set up, measure the entire home. We have our large loss estimating team that puts everything together. Then we have our team actually put all the documents together. We fill the proof of loss out for the insured, which is a duty after the loss, submit everything to the carrier. And then we start negotiating back and forth. Usually they'll send an adjuster out to meet with us, and hopefully we can come to an agreement and get everything settled as quickly as possible for the insured.
Insurance companies are notorious for taking forever for getting a claim, come to a solution. What kind of time frame can someone expect if they're working with you to finally get that check?
Yeah, it's you're gonna save. I mean, you're gonna save a large amount of time and headaches. But in terms of how long, it's hard to say because it depends on each claim, right? As soon as we get hired, we get going. Within 5 days, we're there measuring. We get all our documents. Within the next 5 days of that, we have our estimate, our documents, our file put together. That's 10 days. We submit it within 10, 15 days, our whole file. And now we have that submitted. Now it's kind of on the insurance, and now it's us kind of pressing them and trying to get this thing wrapped up and settled. Some claims, 30 days. Some 60. Some take, 90 to 120. It just depends on the claim. When it happened, are we starting from the beginning? Because when we start from the beginning, those go the quickest, right? Because we're ahead. We're in charge. We're presenting the insurance, the estimate. We're presenting them all the paperwork, all the findings. And now it goes really smooth. When we come in after claims being delayed for months or, something's happened, then it gets harder and more difficult.
Andy, explain how you're paid and how you make money in this process.
Yeah. We charge a contingency fee. There's no retainer, no any other cost. It's contingent based on what we recover. So if the client receives 100,000, and then once they receive the check, that's when they pay us. And it's based on a fee starting at 10% that can go up anywhere to 20, 25% depending on the claim. If it's a claim we're coming in from the back end where the insured's received some money, and we're trying to help them recover a little bit more. On top of that, it might be a higher fee just for that new amount. If we're starting right from the beginning, it always starts with 10%. For our large commercial clients, there's actually scale. We have a special program, CAP program, that we offer. That actually our fee actually goes down as the claim goes up. The amount, our fee actually goes up. So there's a lot of benefits.
And if someone wants to work with a public adjuster, whether it's All City or whether it's somebody else, what sort of questions should someone ask of a public adjuster to know if they're the right fit for them?
Yeah. Are you actually a company? Are you just by yourself? Do you actually have team members, estimators, or are you working by yourself and you're the only one? What kind of claims do you handle? Because they'll say, well, we just handle storm damage. Okay, well, I had a fire, so you're probably not a great fit for me, right? What kind of claims do you handle? How long have you been handling claims? Um, do you have any certifications? Do you have any licenses? What's your background? What were you doing before this? Those are kind of a good way to start, and then ask for referrals. But the most important thing out of all that is, what kind of claims do you handle? How many fires have you handled, and are you able to hire a large, 3-story pipe burst? Are you familiar with those? I did one, 3 years ago. Probably not a great fit.
Great. Andy, this has been a really informative discussion. I learned a ton. Is there anything that we haven't hit on that you feel like listeners should know about working with a public adjuster?
No, I think the questions you asked were spot on. No, I think everything is right along. My only advice would be, before you even have a loss, get with the PA, have him review your policies, make sure everything checks out, and have him on call. It's not like there's no retainers for having a PA on your speed dial. It's just like having a great accountant.
And finally, Andy, if listeners want to connect with you, you personally, learn more about All City Adjusting, where would you like to send people?
Yeah, they can check us out on our website, allcityadjusting.com. For your listeners, I'll leave them with my direct line. If any listener has a question about policy, claim, anything in this industry, they can reach out to me at 708-655-4186. And yeah, if they type in my name, Andy Gurczak, in Google, All City Adjusting, they'll find a ton of great information. So
it's Andy Gurczak, that's spelled Gurczak. His company is All City Adjusting. Andy, thank you so much for joining me today.
Jonathan, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Listeners, if you'd like to connect with either one of us, we would love to talk to you. We love talking about commercial real estate and insurance adjusting, and we would love for you to reach out to us. So please do so. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, take care.